What are the commonalities among leaders who sustain excellence over an extended period of time?
Scott, so good to have you here on the Learning Leader Show. Welcome, man.
Ryan, thanks for having me. I'm happy, healthy, and excited to dig in. I love your podcast. Your guests are off the charts. I'm humbled to be here and be part of this family now. And I think you're doing incredible work.
Thank you, man. We were just reminiscing before I hit record about our mutual friend who's become a legend on this podcast, and that's JJ Redick, because he played for your team, the Sixers, and was a great player for your team. Still is a great player, just now on the Mavericks. And it's cool to find a mutual friend in common, man.
And JJ coming off a screen, jumping, floating, squaring his shoulders, and knocking down threes is something that I've never seen before, and I don't think we'll see ever anytime again soon. I mean, he is as special on the court as he's off it. And I love his podcasting career taking off.
It's really cool to see. I think it's cool to see athletes in general thinking a little bit differently. They can still be focused on their craft and working extremely hard on it, but then also trying to build on the side like he's doing and many others. I think it's really neat. But Scott, to get us started, this moment in your book just drew me in, and I wanted to talk to you about it. And so you're at a YPO event, Young Presidents Organization. I've been lucky to do some events with YPO, and I've loved all of them. The people are incredible. So anyway, you're in the backwoods of Ohio. I'm here in Ohio. I'm in Dayton, Ohio. Not really the backwoods. Some would call it a suburb, I guess, where I live. And you're with, at the time, your daughter Kira. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah.
Is 11 years old. And as a dad of daughters, this really spoke to me, but I think it speaks to anybody in a leadership position. Can you take us inside that moment of the exercise you were to do and some of the things that you said to Kira on that day?
Sure. So, YPO has been amazing and provided these kinds of experiences. Mm-hmm. And I think about a lot how we use our time and how important moments oftentimes pass us by. So that big best man speech you give at a wedding, or the big, marrying off your daughter speech, or the big birthday toast you have, is just too far in between. And I think we have to do a better job and can bring a lot more richness and meaning to life by having those conversations. So anyway, I'm in the backwoods in this awful accommodations. And I did live in Akron for whatever it's worth for a little bit. Okay. So I know awful. And they separated, the daughters are out doing some kind of craft and experience, and the dads are in this cabin, and a facilitator comes in and says, you're going to have 30 minutes to tell your daughter everything you want to tell her. It's the last time you'll ever speak to her. What are you going to say? So, your first instinct, because you're in the moment, you are 100%, you're where your feet are, you're present, you're connected. And I kind of panicked. I hadn't even thought about that or those conversations. Shame on me. I haven't thought about it. And so I'm like scribbling. My brother Michael was there with his daughter, and he's next to me. I'm looking at him. He seems to have like a perfect outline going. I'm like, I'm about to break into tears. I'm scribbling, and he said, time's up. I'm like, go find your daughter and go for a walk. You'll hear a horn in 30 minutes. So I tucked the piece of paper in my pocket, knowing there's nothing on there anyway that can be used. And she takes my hand, and I said, well, Kira, she said, well, Dad, what are we doing? I said, we're going to have a nice talk about life and love, the pursuit of happiness. She's like, life and love. What? I said, well, Kira, I'm just going to talk to you about some things I want you to always remember. She said, okay. I said, well, first, family. And she says, I said, I just want you to recognize the importance of this unit we have. We're going to be together forever. And friends will come and go. Boyfriends will come and go. And this is it. And I want you to lean in and lean on this group. And I want your biggest dreams and your biggest fears to be okay talking about. And I want you to lead. I want you to be a leader in this family. And I want you to help be the best version of yourself inside these walls, because this is the safe place where we can all take care of each other and get better. She gave me like the nod that a 11-year-old would give a dad. Mm-hmm. And then I said, it's going to be okay. And she said, what's going to be okay? And I said, everything. And I find that in life, as I told her, nothing goes as planned, and when you go through life, you think it's just a linear path to success, or whatever success, however you define success in life, work, family, and sports, or however you define it. It's never linear. It just goes up and down. Some things go well and some things don't go so well. And she said, like what? And I said, well, your boyfriend's going to break up with you. She's like, I don't have a boyfriend. I said, I know, not yet. I said, you're going to crash your car. That she actually did. You're going to fail a test. You're going to have a stumble in your marriage. You're going to have a miscarriage. Somebody you love is going to get cancer. Like life is messy. And I just want you to know that everything will be okay. And, sometimes we are so focused on that tree in front of us. If we can just pull that lens back and see the entire forest, or the whole world for that matter, or figure out that little dot on the piece of paper and where you are now has nothing to do with what life is going to look like or what opportunity lies ahead. And she squeezed my hand a little bit. And the last thing I said was, anything, anytime. I actually lead with a lot of my emails now since then with anything, anytime. And I said, call me, text me, FaceTime me, email me. I am there. I'm with you for better, for worse. Things go well, I'll come cheer you on. And sometimes we have such difficulty celebrating things that go well, and sometimes when things don't go so well, we have trouble and we isolate ourselves. And if this pandemic has taught us one thing, it's that we need that connective tissue. We need each other. And so those were my three big driving points to her. And I will tell you, like, I've been really blessed with my three daughters I have. She's my middle one. And I happen to have very different relationship with each of them, and very special relationship with each of them. And I think that those moments that you have matter. And I think about my own life, and we get up in the morning, it's chaos in our house. Okay. The mornings it's NCAA tournament for us, survive and advance in the morning. My wife and I look at each other, give each other a wink, give each other a nod. We're just trying to get them in the car, get to school, and we're okay. Somebody's borrowing somebody's shirt. They don't have their bag in place, whatever the chaos of the morning is. Then I'm off to work. The kids are off to school, and then they got sports and, homework, and I got games, and I come home. My wife, does quite a bit of service in our church and the community. And so how much time do you have? Like real time? An hour? 45 minutes? Like, what are you going to do with that 45 minutes? I tell you what most of us do. We're exhausted. So we sit on a TV, we put on Ted Lasso or some show just to kind of like numb us or help us escape. By the way, that's a brilliant show. You should watch it if you haven't seen it. Brilliant show. And then it's bedtime. And that's it. Another day lost. Yeah. Instead of like, where was that time? It could be 10 minutes. Oh, you want to find meaning? Go ask a teenager how her day was. Good. How was school? Fine. It's like, that can't be life. There's something so much more rich and meaningful. And as the moms and dads, we have to drive it differently.
So Scott, I love it. Thank you. Your career is a really cool one to study. And I wanted to unpack it a bit as we also talk about your family, because I can tell from reading your work and following you that your family is everything. But you've also built this amazing career for yourself, and we'll talk about balance in a second. But can you walk me? I don't normally do this, but for you, I'd like to, because I think you have. Initially, I was like, he's a CEO of the Sixers. Oh no, he's a CEO of the hockey team, the Devils too. Wait, no, he's a CEO of. And I was like, what is this? So can you lay out your actual role and maybe
Sure.
a little bit about how you actually got the current role that you have today? Because I think it's very rare, the position that you're in, and I don't know if I've come across someone with your kind of the expansiveness of all that you do.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, my current role is fun. I'm the CEO of Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment. When I started 8 years ago, it was the Sixers as a tenant in the Wells Fargo Center. And then we quickly bought we built a training complex, $80 million, most beautiful world-class training complex in all of basketball in the world. We acquired the New Jersey Devils of the National Hockey League and the Prudential Center, which is now one of the 10 busiest arenas in the world, believe it or not. Acquired an esports team, which is this growing sport. And your traditional sports people won't get it, but the numbers are incredible. We built a sports marketing agency. We have a real estate arm. We have a venture arm where we invest in early stage companies. We have an innovation lab, which we've built. So it's a pretty incredible business that we've grown in value. We've grown just over 5 times in the 8 years. So the business is growing, and I think we've just barely scratched the surface in terms of what we can accomplish.
So you've actually like created your roles. You haven't necessarily got hired or promoted. You initially got hired. And what was that job 8 years ago? Just CEO of the
CEO of the Philadelphia 76ers. Yeah.
Okay.
And they had just gone through the worst trade in history with Andrew Bynum.
Okay.
And they were at the bottom.
CEO of a basketball team mean, like, in relation to an owner, a general manager? Where does it, like, what role does the CEO have with a team?
Sure. Well, I work for 2 guys that have day jobs. So one's at Apollo and one's at Blackstone, 2 private equity guys.
Okay.
Josh Harris and David Blitzer, wonderful guys, good people. And they work for a living, and so someone has to run the business for them.
Oh.
So there are decisions we make to actually grow. And, we pay the players. Players are very well paid. They do well for themselves. And somebody has to make sure that we take care of that. So that's me. So everything outside of drafting players and assembling a team.
Okay. So does the GM report to you then?
No.
Oh, how does that work?
Yeah. So it works differently in all the, think of us as partners. Yeah. I think it's
okay.
Partners.
So you and okay, I got you. So
Daryl Morey on the basketball side.
Yep.
And Tom Fitzgerald on the Devils side.
Interesting. Okay. What a cool job, man.
Oh, it's so fun. And I got there, I was the president of Madison Square Garden Sports, which was the coolest job ever from a New York kid. I just remember walking in my first day thinking like, all right, I think we're going to play, guys still play. I play a lot of pickup hoop. Yeah. And I was like, so do we get to play on the floor? They're like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, what do you do now? So it was pretty fun. And we did, we spun Madison Square Garden out of Cablevision to create a separately traded public company, put over $1 billion into the arena to create the world's most famous arena, to keep it as it is. Mm-hmm. Infused the team in terms of culture and talent, went from 2 turnarounds, went from non-playoff teams to playoff teams, pretty cool. And then did some of the biggest deals in terms of sponsorship tickets and suites ever done. So incredible experience. And I got fired. So
why'd you get fired?
If I'm truly self-reflective, I was so busy being right and not spending my time being effective. So, and that's a life lesson that I carry forward with me, and have done a much better job the second time around.
What does that look like in practice of worrying or of being right instead of being effective? I think a lot of us probably deal with this, so that's why.
Well, when you're really passionate about what you do, and you've built a team that you're proud of in a culture that's inspiring, you fight to the death to make sure that is protected, and sometimes fighting to the death results in such. So and instead of understanding that the 95% is amazing, or the 90%, and that I was part of a bigger organization. And so for me, you know, I was so focused on this third. I mean, a third of the business, it's a big business, that I could have done a much better job in kind of like translating to the whole. And I'll give you one specific example. So we had, I believe that people are motivated by different things. So that's what I believe, you know. And I believe that some people want to go play for Bobby Knight and some people never could. And in other words, and I couldn't, I don't want anyone screaming at me all the time and telling me I'm an idiot. I don't need to be pushed. I don't need to be motivated. I don't need to be inspired. Like, I got that part, you know. What I need is support, little blocking and tackling, and let me go. And so some, you know, they had a program that rewarded tenure-based rewards, which was a big thing at Madison Square Garden. You know, and I'm a change agent, and I was brought in to change the organization. So I wasn't so much into celebrating tenure as I was performance and change. And so how I handled that was not very good. I said, I'm not handing out any tenure awards. Like that honestly, like, could I do that better? Isn't it nice? You know, as I look back, isn't it nice that someone hits a 5-year, 15-year, 20-year, 25? I mean, it's wonderful that people are with you for 25 years. Now, I was busy removing a lot of those people. But for the people that were here, all I had to do was take a step back and say, Jan, I'm so glad you're here for 25 years. You're wonderful. Here's your blanket or pillow or watch or whatever we gave. And I was focused on these. I don't know if you've ever seen the Kruger Park video, the water buffaloes. Anyway, you should watch it. It's too long. It's about 12 minutes. I played it on my first day. And it's effectively like this big watering hole. And
what's it called again?
Kruger Park, Kruger. It's in Kenya.
Okay.
And this tourists are just narrating, you know, this water buffalo herd is rolling up to the water hole, and the lions are crouching ready to attack. And the lions attack, and of course they get the little baby. The baby rolls into the water, and the lions are on top of the water buffalo trying to drag it out of the water so they can have their lunch. And just as they're about to get the water buffalo, a big crocodile comes, snaps it, starts tug of warring with this poor little baby water buffalo, all being narrated by this tourist. They finally drag, they win, and then the tourist says, the lions have won, the lions have won. And then he pans his camera back, and you see all these water buffalo coming to the rescue. And they're a little hesitant, but they're shoulder to shoulder. And at the end of the day, they come and knock the lions off. They run up, and miraculously, the little baby pops up and runs back with the herd. And it's unbelievable. So I played that on my first day at Madison Square Garden. And so as a token of appreciation for when you were a water buffalo, as opposed to a tourist who just watches things happen, or lions who attack the weak, or the croc who kicks somebody when they're down, I want to celebrate water buffalo. So we got all these buffalo nickels, which cost about $3 for whatever it's worth. And we had them. And so when somebody did something to be an extraordinary teammate, which is one of my core pillars of what makes a successful person at work, we would create this little card, put a water buffalo, like a buffalo nickel on it. And I had a little picture of a water buffalo. We'd tape one up by my office, which became like wallpaper. It was really cool. And then the other one would be on a cube. And so you'd see they had them lined up on the cube. It became like a central. So that was me being right. It's right. Like celebrate celebrate what you want to reinforce. Okay. That's being a water buffalo. That's being a great teammate. That's like rallying around and making it good. Now, how could I have married that by being more effective? Could I have helped the media group and the entertainment group have that sort of program? Of course I could have. But I was just, I'm right. We need this program. Forget about tenure. That's like an example. There are probably 100 of them. But as I've,
do you think as you've gotten you've matured, you've gotten wiser, like I think most of us do as we get older, do you think your ego has just gotten smaller? Is that part of it? Did you have a bigger ego at that?
Yeah. It's not ego as much. I mean, those who know me really well would say, that's a really humble guy. Those who don't know me well at all be like, wow, his ego's out of control.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. So it's a misconception of you would say.
The answer is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You know, I think to do great things, you have to be confident.
Yes.
And to drive change situations, you have to make decisions that aren't going to always be popular.
Yep.
And you have to do them. And so I would say that, yes, over time, have I found ways to rechannel that energy that could come across as ego into much more kind of self-effacing or much more celebrating others. Have I moved from like a warrior phase, which I had this executive coach who was amazing. He used to tell me like, you're a warrior, you're a warrior. I was like, yeah, I want to be a warrior. And so as I've matured, I'm more apt to celebrate others' successes than my own. And I'm much more interested in helping, help create the next generation of leaders than I am taking my victory lap. And even the book I wrote, it's not a victory lap book. I wouldn't be able to talk to you about it. It's really much more about what can we learn when things go south. Yeah.
I want to hit work-life balance. This is a question I'm asked a lot. Obviously you're asked a lot. And I believe your view on it has evolved. And one of the things that was compelling to me in your writing that really stuck with me is that when people are striving for some sort of work-life balance, they end up being in the mediocre middle. And I was like, oh, that's a great point. Can you talk about how your views have evolved on work-life balance?
Yes. I think that when you think you can do it all, have it all, make it all, it's a really naive view. When you understand that life and that time is your most precious resource, and that trade-offs are the only way to make your time actually count, that's a pretty intense realization. I don't believe in work-life balance. I don't think it exists. I don't know anyone who has been successful without working unreasonably hard. But as I laid out earlier, I'm not sure it's about how much time. I think it's about how you spend that time that you have, and to make sure where your feet are, that you're wholly present. And that, by the way, that's at work too, and at home. Now, for me, my life's about trade-offs. My trade-off, friends. And I will tell you, a lot of people will say, Scott is a good friend of mine. And then you can ask them, when's the last time you saw him outside of a game? And they'd say, not too recently, because I know that I have to trade off. It's like, I have my work, I have my church, I have my family. That's where I'm choosing to spend the majority of my time. Yeah. And it's not that I don't have good friends. It's not that I don't love my friends. It just means that if I'm going to see them, it's going to be at a Devs game or a Sixers game, because I know I have to be there. And that's an opportunity for me to connect. Yeah. And so that's all, and it's not, I don't see it. I don't know what 9 to 5 looks like. But you know what I do know it looks like? I know what a parent-teacher conference looks like because I get there. I know what an awful 8th grade Christmas concert looks like because I'm there too. And I can't believe they make them at 11 o'clock. I think it's so ridiculous, but they do. And I'm there. Yeah. And I know what coaching my daughters look like because I've been coaching them for 15 years. And so I have to be disciplined to go do it. And so that doesn't mean when I'm there, I'm not at a practice taking a call. I'm not at a Christmas concert on my iPad. I'm not at a parent-teacher conference wishing I was just about anywhere else. I'm there. And do I have to white knuckle back to games sometimes? Of course I do. I get the drill. Like, I know what my job is. I know what my responsibility is. But the gift is to be present. Yeah. And I think that is the recipe for fulfillment and not this illusion of balance.
How about WMI? What does WMI mean to you and your organization?
WMI is what's most important. And I learned that one from Brett Brown, our former coach. He was with us for 7 years. We both came in together with Sam Hinkie in the early days of the Philadelphia 76ers. And he had it written on all of his notepads, which I loved. And so what he was trying to tell us is you've got to figure out what is most important in your life and spend your time there. And a great exercise I have, which is really interesting, for if you're running a business or running a department or wanting to run a business or wanting to run a department, to figure out and articulate what your WMI is. And that might move. It definitely moves from year to year or decade to decade, but it might move when you're young, it might move month to month. If you're, kind of just emerging in your career, it might move week to week. Your WMI at work is going to be different from your WMI at home, but you better figure out what both of those are. But what a great exercise is to actually write them down and then do an audit of your calendar every week at the end of the week. And what that audit will say is you put WMI, you put the things up there up on top, and then you try to figure out how many Zoom calls, how many meetings, how many engagements, how much work time was dedicated to that WMI. And the problem is you're not going to love your answer. And so what high performers think about a lot is, can I spend 60% of my time on the 3 most critical things I need to tackle at work? That's the recipe for high performers. How much are we really doing? Probably not enough. Mm-hmm. So it's a great tool just to go through, do an audit, figure out what really matters at home and at work.
Yeah, I've heard a phrase, instead of telling me your priorities, show me your calendar.
Oh, I love that.
Of what you actually do and what you've done. And I think it's a great exercise to analyze and review weekly. What did I do and what do I claim is most important, and do my actions match with what I claim is most important? And if you're, as you said, you do that audit regularly and you care to make a difference or to make a change, I bet the odds of you focusing and doing a better job on what's most important will go up than if you just haphazardly wander around and hope for the best and say, well, I'm really busy. I mean, we all have been there. I think that's why when I was reading about WMI, that really stuck out to me.
Right. And I think to make one level better, which is where I challenge my leaders that I get who I work with every day, is either change your WMI or change your calendar. And so it's just no sense in fooling yourself. It's like, I want great health, but you don't work out. I want great health, but I'm still eating them at fast food. Just stop. It's okay. You need to be your authentic self. You need to figure out what's really important. But there comes a point where we have to be accountable to ourselves and what we want and what we want to accomplish.
You write about the good old days, and there's something I want to bring up. A scene from The Office. Have you watched The Office TV show?
What is it?
Okay. Do you remember Andy Bernard, Ed Helms? Do you remember this quote?
No, give it to me.
So he says, I believe this is the series finale. I could be wrong, but either way, you could Google it and find it at Andy Bernard or Ed Helms. And he said, I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them. And I think a phrase I like to say to myself in the midst of kids' sports in a crazy, chaotic house at times similar to yours, especially in the morning, is these are the good old days. Actually say it, say it in my head, say it aloud. These are the good old days. Because I've spoken with so many people who are further along than me, whose kids have now left the house because they went to college or beyond. And it's 100% of them say, hey man, appreciate and enjoy these days. I know they're not all perfect and I know they're chaotic at times. You're in the good old days. Live that. And so that's a phrase. And when I saw you write about, oh man, I got to bring this up because that quote is something I really try to think about, even in the midst of chaos, because if everyone thought we're in the good old days, I bet we just all be a little better off.
Yeah, I do love Andy Bernard, and I do love that he went to Cornell. But I will say that yes, from my perspective, I feel everyone said to me, by the way, with 3 daughters, they said, it's going to be so amazing, but wait till they're teenagers, And I said, and I've loved it. I will say my 20s were incredible. My 30s, amazing. My 40s, I'm not the guy who turned 40 and was like, oh, I'm 51. Like, no, I turned 40. I had friends that did not handle that well. Turned 50 and they're like, okay, my life's all right. Life's over. We actually, we know what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
We actually have experience. We have perspective. We've had some level of success. We have relationships. Business should be easier. Parenting is different because our children have grown up. Now we're becoming coaches as my daughters get older. I'm not parenting them anymore. It's not go to your room, put your phone down. It's let me tell you about some shared experience I had. Let me tell you about what I learned when I made a mistake that looks a lot like the one you're about to make. And so I think, at least for me, the perspective has been wonderful. I have had a blessed life. It's littered with potholes and falls and trips and mistakes and problems. But my perspective is definitely not one up the tree. It's definitely one of the forest. And I think that every decade has been very, very different, from in our 20s, not being able to pay bills to in my 40s being fired from a really high profile job and ended up in the paper, and you wake up and you're like, whoa, I don't want my mom reading this, to kind of settling back down and getting perspective and thinking through what is meaningful. I was talking to a dear friend of mine the other day, and he said to me, he was walking through one of his issues, and he's like, look, I'm not saying it's a midlife crisis. I said, oh, it's 100% a midlife crisis. I said, you're just dealing with it really well. And I said, it's at my age, my father's passed away, and I never thought, my dad was really sick, unfortunately, passed away. And I was like stunned. I was surprised that I was hurt so badly, and which it's not that I wasn't really close to my dad, but he was suffering. I was praying that he would pass away because he was in so much pain. But I, after some reflection, I said, okay, I totally get it. Mortality. Now I know what it is, because I didn't know. I'd heard about it. I read about it. I'd had friends that had dealt with it. But I was like, okay, the clock's ticking. I totally get the drill. How am I going to take advantage of this time I have?
Love that way of thinking. You mentioned public failure, and you being a public figure and a very public job. One other the stories you wrote about that I think we learned so much from these moments, and I know this is a part of who you are, is you're not afraid to share and talk about what you've learned from public failures. But you started a business with Seth Berger, who was the founder of And1, and for those of us who remember And1, it was like I believe the number 2 shoe in the world in the world of basketball. And you two together raised, I believe, $14 million. He put in $1 million of his own, and it was called HoopsTV, right? This is a business you started. Yes. And it didn't go as you hoped. Can you share a little more about what happened, what went wrong, and then most importantly, I think, what you learned from that public failure?
Sure. Seth works with me today, by the way. He runs our innovation lab, if you want to complete the circle.
Awesome. So
Seth has a brilliant way of focusing all his energy and time on the 3 things that really matter. So what's most important are always really clear to him. When I think I was 28 or 29, I thought that running a company or being the president of a company was very different from what it actually is. It's actually, I know I needed to rate now. I need to raise money. I need to drive revenue, and I need to drive traffic. That's it. That was my job. But I thought it was everything other than that. I probably spent 5% of my time on the stuff that really mattered, and 95% of the time on the stuff that did not.
Like what?
Whatever that.
Like what? What is something
ceremonial crap? Everything around. I was leaning into some content stuff, and I was, taking trips. I literally just needed to focus. Now, it was a .com bust era. So it was boom bust right in the middle of our so environmentally it was bad.
Yeah.
Secondly, we had a very video heavy site in the days of dial-up. I know you're quite younger than I am, but remember that? So you couldn't watch video. So our best stuff you couldn't watch. And so that's something a president probably should have a handle on. So yeah, I made a ton of mistakes. But man, I wouldn't trade that time for anything.
Yeah.
We became the number 2 site to NBA.com, a basketball site in the world. Like our vision was to become what NBA TV became, but for all of basketball, not just the NBA. And then NBA obviously launched their TV network, and that wasn't great. So, and we still, you know, when we went down, I fired everyone, including one of my brothers, which is just awesome. And then I had to call every one of the vendors that we owed money to and negotiate them down, because we only had a limited amount of money. So I literally took a company of 53 some odd people who were hopeful and young and full of energy and incredibly talented, and kind of reduced it to a filing cabinet, you know, and it was terrible, you know. And then I didn't have any money. So now I'm out of work, out of luck, out of money. I'm married. My wife had retired since we had our first daughter. So we have a mortgage for the first time. I'd never had a house before. I have a mortgage, which I can't pay. I have a baby. I mean, I'm just charging stuff on my credit card to eat, you know. And I was emotionally a mess. And so I mean, I learned so many lessons. One is marry the right person. So that's, you know, if you pick the right partner, you're going to find out pretty quickly when things are bad or you're in trouble. And I did. I got married when I was 25. So I would love to say that I'm an incredible genius at reading people, or I'm just lucky. But I got pretty fortunate with my wife, Lisa. And so she kept it all together, and me together. She always pays the bills and runs the house. So I didn't even know it was as bad as it was, but it was foreclosure notice bad. Like, that's bad.
Wow.
You know?
How did she do that? How did she have, like, what is it about her that had the fortitude to do that?
I don't know, but I remember she told me, I mean, she told me later on, 3 years later, she said, hey, I just want to unpack this with you. And she's incredible. Talk about a life learner. I mean, she's the one's like, you need to listen to this podcast. You need to read this article. Hey, this will be good for your team. Like, she's just a very interesting woman who's interested. And so she told me a story years later about her girlfriend who said, I don't know what Scott's doing, but like, he should go down to Starbucks and get a job, you know? And which is fine. I don't mean to disrespect Starbucks or anybody that works there, but she had bigger plans for me, you know? And she let her friend know it, apparently. My wife is she's, you know, we're very counterbalanced. She's introverted and thoughtful, and I'm a little more roller coaster and high energy.
Isn't it the best feeling in the world, Scott, to prove your supporter right, especially when it's your wife? Like, I just don't know if there's a better feeling than to prove that person who had your back when you had zip, you messed up, you failed, no money, right, can't pay the bills, and that person had your back then. They believed in you, they supported you, they did what that needed to be done, even beyond what you knew was happening. And then today you have proven her right. Like, man, I'm like that. I just think that is the coolest thing. That is like such a good feeling to prove those people right.
Yeah, I think that is right. I mean, I remember we signed up for AmeriDebt, which is one of those debt consolidation services.
Oh.
No bueno, by the way, in case anybody's listening. I mean, they torture credit for 7 years. But anyway, so I made so many, so I was just like trying to figure it out. And I remember came home one day, I was walking with Alexa, my daughter, and I walked in the door. I was like, all right, I'm ready to go. She's like, great, what's the plan? And I said, I'm just going to call my friends. And that's what I did. And within 3 weeks, I was working at the NBA. And so, wow. So it was, but it was 3 months. And that was me playing basketball, trying to escape, reading books, trying to find myself, like spending time with family. I was just doing, and she was encouraging me to do all that stuff that was my good energy. And we dug out pretty good after a while. But quick story about Lisa. I know you didn't ask me, I'm going to tell you. I worked at the NBA. Eventually, we moved up closer to New York because we stayed in Philadelphia for a while just to get a little more stable. And then moved up to Summit, New Jersey, and we were, you know, having fun. And my boss went on, Bernie Mull, amazing guy, went on to be the CEO of the Hawks and Thrashers in Atlanta. And so there was like an open window, and David Stern was my boss, called. He was a really tough guy. God rest his soul, he's passed away, but he was a mentor literally to the last day of his life for me. But he was one of the meanest people I've ever met.
Really?
Oh yeah. Now, it's charming on TV, but just a bully. And, you know, so when that 8,300 would flash on your phone, you're like, all of a sudden the heat would rise up. And so, he calls, he's like, I can't believe I'm going to do this, but, yeah, I think you're going to get this effing job, blah, blah, blah. And I said, whoa. I said, oh, all right, well, thanks, boss. And he hung up already, So I went home to Lisa and I said, hey, like, you're not going to believe this, but, and I was already making more money than I had ever made or ever thought I'd ever make. I was kind of, when we got married, I was making $15,000 a year.
Wow.
So she didn't marry me for money, that's for sure. She out-earned me until she retired. So anyway, so I was like, you're not going to believe this, but I think I'm going to get Bernie's job and get promoted. She's like, wow. I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to get a big raise. She's like, oh, good. So the next day I go in and he screams at me some more and says, would you have any expectations? And I was like, no, I mean, whatever you think's fair, so he tells me it was double what I was making. Okay.
Oh,
yeah. So I go home and I'm like, you are not going to believe this, but I'm making X. And she's like, think of all the people we can help.
wow.
I mean, that is like,
it's awesome.
Yeah. You just get a good sense of those times of like, it is not smooth and not easy.
Yeah.
And you just like get that sense like, okay, I got this. I'm going to fight.
Man.
I'm going to fight for fight for my family, fight for my relationships forever. It's pretty awesome.
I love it. That's such a cool story. Thank you for sharing. Scott, one of the other things you've written about that I personally love is creating and committing to a leadership constitution, one for yourself. Can you share why it's important for all of us leaders to take the time to write it, as well as maybe some practical how-to tips for people to, the second they get done listening to this, and if they haven't already done this exercise, they could start it today, right now, to say, okay, I'm going to start my leadership constitution, to get it from whatever is in my mind down onto the page, so I have some semblance of this is what I declare, this is what I believe, this is who I am when it comes to leadership.
Sure. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s. So that was kind of pop psychology back then. So it's like, put this on your mirror, listen to orchestra music before you go to bed, a symphony before you go to bed. Say these 3 positive affirmations, all that stuff. And I grew up in a house with, my dad had his PhD. And my mom now she has her PhD. She got it when she was 65, ironically, but she had her master's in child psychology. So I grew up in a laboratory fishbowl of, hey, let's try some really amazing different things. So I grew up in a really fun environment. And I was down at my brother Michael. I have 3 brothers and a sister, all born within 6 years of each other. So we pretty much, our friends were all friends with each other. I have some really funny stories about growing up, and we lived in a really small house and 2 bunk beds in one room with the 4 boys, and my sister had a room with my parents. And I was down at Mike then, and they all run companies except for my sister. She's starting a company now, but so it's a group of leaders, and it's almost like we were bred to do what we do, if you will. And so it's at Michael's office. He runs a healthcare tech company called Get Well Network. One of the most inspiring leaders I've ever been around. And I'm in his office just kind of walking around because he was late coming out of a meeting. And I look on his wall and he has this thing framed, and it's, I declare that I am ... and you can count on me to be ... And it's this whole kind of, I actually have mine here. I can read it if helpful.
Yeah.
But it just gives you a sense. And he walks in, I'm like, what is this? He said, hey, I'm working with this great guy, Rich Hill, Gabriel Consulting out of Chicago. And it's a leadership constitution. It's like me putting myself out there. He's like, it's not what you aspire to be, it's what you are. It's who you are in your essence. It's like when you're your best self, how are you living? And you just have to answer these 2 little questions. So I'm gonna read mine. It's up here. So I just pulled it off the wall. I declare that I am a passionate and authentic leader of leaders who feels the gravitational pull towards talent and character. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I love people and being part of a team. I get energy from helping others and would give the shirt off my back to a stranger and anything, anytime to a friend. I am family first, high integrity, and surprisingly sensitive change agent who is confident, caring, and intellectually curious. This feels like a competitive drive that at times feels like a chip on my shoulder. You can count on me to bring positive energy into my space, exude urgency and push you, challenge you, nudge you, and raise the bar beyond your expectations and sometimes what you think is reasonable. Laugh with you, cry with you, love you, even when you won't laugh, haven't cried, and don't feel loved. Root for you today, every day, and always. Share the most personal thoughts, emotions, stories, highs and lows, because I am okay with it and who I am. Enjoy the roller coaster of life, whether we're going forward, backwards, and upside down. Drive hard to reach the summit and then quickly start on another mountain. And share wins and take hits for losses. So the key here, so that's me. That is me in a nutshell. And that took me about 3 weeks to keep refining. It's up in my office. I try to read it when I walk by it. And I think any mantra, now it doesn't have to be this model, this leadership constitution. I declare that I am, ... and you can count on me to be, ... If you answer those 2 questions, put that down on paper and show them to people who really love you and know you. They'll give you feedback. But I would just encourage you to write it down, sit it in a drawer. 2 days later, go through it again and just start editing. You know, keep refining it to a point where it becomes a manifestation of who you are as your best self. And I love it. I love positive reinforcement. I love reminders. And the way that the temperature check for you, as to you know if you hit it out of the park or not, is that when I'm feeling off, or I'm feeling like down, or I'm feeling uncomfortable, or I'm feeling not my best self, it typically is because there's something in here that I'm not living. And so it's a great temperature check on life when you're not feeling your best.
You've said that there's a 4-part process to help people become more present, and the 4th part is about this leadership constitution and living it. One of the other aspects of these 4 parts that I think is critical, and you just mentioned it, and that is seek authentic feedback. For a person in your position, a powerful position with people working for you, how do you ensure that you're not surrounded by yes men or women, and that you're getting authentic, useful feedback in order to continue to improve, to get better at what you're doing and being there for your team and helping your organization do what it needs to do?
Yes. I mean, sometimes I joke at work, like at some point I would like you guys to just humor me and be nice, you know? So I do not have a bunch of yes men and women around me for sure. And we love to debate and argue and fight. And anyway, from a management leadership end, to the extent you can build a team of people who will tell you the truth is the only way. And you have to be humble enough and okay enough to hear it. And the sign that your organization is really cooking is when you as the leader aren't coming up with the best ideas. Like that's when you know you're loaded with talent. Anyway, so for me though, when you're running a company, like good luck. Like you're not, I mean, everybody has a board or somebody financing them or a chairman. So, you know, and I have a board, very, very active one. And I can't get it from them. And if I'm being honest with myself, although my teammates, they will give me real feedback for sure, it'll be on issues, not on me. And so, you know, I get a lot of that from my brothers, quite frankly, and YPO. And my YPO forum, so in YPO, the Young Presidents Organization mentioned before, you get 8 to 10 presidents and CEOs. You get together once a month for 4 hours in a no holds barred. Everything is what we call forum confidential. Nothing leaves the room. And that's where you get some real feedback. Like, I don't know how else you get it when you get a level. It's like you say, but don't you have a mentor? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty much either past or past my mentors. And so I can talk to them for sure, but it's different. You know, and your partner, your wife, your husband, they're wonderful. And my wife's not afraid of giving me straight talk for sure, but it's different. Like she loves me and she is there for me, you know. Yeah. I'm not sure how much she's pushing me on different decisions at different times because at the end of the day, she's on my team. We're at the hip. And so I think it's really hard. It's a great question, the right question. When you're coming up though, when you're emerging through an organization, I always, in particular with my younger, talented, ambitious execs, I always ask them, like, who have they connected to in the last month? In the sports world, it's the easiest thing in the world. I mean, I was like, okay, so you work at the Sixers. Do you know somebody at the Celtics? No. Why not? Like if somebody from the Wizards called you today and said, hey, I just wanted to connect with you. I mean, we have the same job title. I just figured we should get to know each other. Maybe we'll connect once a month. I'm like, you would be thrilled. Why don't you be the initiator of that? Like, you go make the call. And I don't think this is just sports related. If you're in insurance and you're working for State Farm, and you reach out to somebody from Progressive, like, what a great connect of network. Like, I think about when I was 22 years old, I was marketing assistant, and there were probably like 25 young people under 25 at the time. Okay, it was a fascinating organization, and we worked together all the time. We had a lot of fun. We went out together. We ate together. I mean, one of those guys is running Rock Nation, which is one of the largest agencies. Another guy's running CAA, which is one of the largest sports marketing and talent agencies. Just two guys from 25. You know, like, what if I didn't get to know them? What if I didn't spend time connecting with them? And you think about, you're at this organization, you're 25 years old. I've 560 people full-time, 2,000 total in my organization. What if they were friends with 568 people at 25 years old? What do you think is going to happen to those 568? Where are they going to be in 5 years? Where are they going to be in 10 years? Where are they going to be in 20 years? Well, I'll tell you what, I look around now, I got friends of mine running organizations all over the world. What a gift. And all you have to do is be your authentic self, reach out and offer to help people, and add value now and again. That's it. That's your price of admission. Like, to me, it seems like such a simple thing to do and such an awful miss on so many fronts.
Scott, one more. When you think about people in your life who have sustained excellence over an extended period of time, it's a big phrase for me, excellence and the sustainability of it, not just, hitting it every once in a while. It's just something you've certainly done, and you're surrounded by people who have done that. As you mentioned, leaders all over the world as part of your peer group, your YPO forum, right? Which I know the power of those and from meeting with them. What have you found that are some of the common behaviors, the actions of the people who have sustained excellence over time?
Yes. Okay. I know this is your go-to question. Like, this is the money question I've actually thought about as a listener. Okay. Number one, you have to be your authentic self. And I think when you're growing up in the business, in any business, you're trying to look on and latch on to role models and how they do it and what they do, how they dress, because everybody's watching, right? So what they say, how they conduct meetings, how they go through life. And I would just say, if you're a rah-rah leader, be a rah-rah leader. If you're an analytical leader, be an analytical leader. If you're a strategic leader, be a strategic leader. But be you. You got to find out. Everyone else is taken. You got to be your authentic self, because people follow authenticity. Secondly, they all work unreasonably hard. Like, I haven't seen it. I hope that I meet someone that is really successful and doesn't work hard. That is my goal before I die. I haven't seen it. It doesn't exist, because I think, that's the price of admission. And I think the third thing is being intellectually curious. And it's not too far off from the title of this podcast. Like, I just, like, the world is changing so fast. And I got so much of a dose of reality from David Stern, who I mentioned earlier, the commissioner. We would get on a plane and he would be saying, you probably don't even know what Wi-Fi is. I'm like, I don't know what he means, Wi-Fi, by the way, but no one ever heard it, because it was 10 years before it hit the market. And so if you're not thinking about blockchain right now and how that's going to change the world, or you're not engaged in 5G and the transformation that we're going to have from 5G, I think those are the two technologies that are going to transform the world as we know it right now. It's like, you better be finding something else. And you might be life sciences. I remember David Stern, when Magic Johnson contracted the HIV virus, he'd already known about HIV. He'd already talked to the world's most experts. So actually helped through Magic world dialogue on what it looked like and how we should be kind of transferring who we are and how we see the virus. It's like, because he studied, because he was intellectually curious, because he did the work. And it's like, it's not enough in my business to read the Sports Business Journal and Sportico and the stuff that's like right in your wheelhouse. It's like, that's wonderful. But like, that's what everybody else is doing. I have this saying in my house. I say, if you do what everybody else does, you get what everybody else gets. Couldn't be any more true. And so how much are you willing to learn? How much are you willing to study? How interested are you? Like, I have one of my oldest daughters now entering for the Utah Jazz, a Western Conference team, and doing great. And she said the funniest thing to me that day. I said, okay, how's it going? What are you doing? I'm walking through, and I was trying to challenge her on her thought process. And she's an intern, so she's, not exactly running the world. She said, well, Dad, I learned one thing. I would rather be the boss and telling people what to do than doing. And I was like, no. No. Here's the thing. It's like, you start and you learn and you work and you just learn. And if you learn and can add value, you can have a wonderful career. But you have to fall in love with it. And that's the fourth thing. I'd say you have to be passionate. And I always use insurance. And I'm not sure why I pick on insurance, but you can be passionate about insurance, okay? And you might not be passionate about the actual insurance, but you can be passionate about building extraordinary teams. Mm-hmm. You can be passionate about building an extraordinary culture. You can be passionate about growing careers for some really extraordinary people, and you're going to change their life. Like, think about what we can do. Like, when you're an operator, like I am, it's like you can actually create an environment that transforms someone's life. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, it's like, and when you speak to the one, I think life gets a lot better.
Love it. How do you feel now that you see this thing is out? This I'm holding up for the audio listeners a picture of your book, Be Where Your Feet Are. How does this make you feel, man?
Proud, in a strange kind of way, like an emotion that I don't feel very often. I don't reflect very much on things that go well. I'm a trained consultant, so I typically, when things happen, I look for how we could improve them, or what would I have done differently, or what would I change next time. And so it's a really strange, rewarding, complicated feeling that I'm wrestling with. But thank you.
It's really good. The combination of the stories and the lessons and the principles and then the practical application, that's a tough combo to really weave all that together. And I think you've done it really well here. And Be Where Your Feet Are, 7 principles to keep you present, grounded, and thriving. Because I found myself reading, and then I think the mark of like a great book is when you get to the end of the page and you don't really have time to keep reading because you got to do something else, and yet you keep reading. And I think that's what this is all about. So I think it's awesome, man. Congrats on getting it out in the midst of the 500 other things that you do, as well as being such a good family man. It was great to talk to you today, man.
I appreciate you rooting for your success, and tell me when you can get to a game and get East. Let's have some fun.
Really? I'm going to take you up on this. Or really? When are we fans coming back to I'd love to go to so I worked in Philly for a little bit, and I never got to go to a Sixers game. Good. And I would love to get to a Sixers game.
Okay, I'm gonna make that happen. I'm gonna get
when are fans coming back, or how much? Like, when are fans? Is it going to be this year or no?
Okay, so we have 20% of our fans back now. Okay. I just heard an hour before the show that it's going to be risen to 25% come May 7th. So it's getting there. It's like baby steps, and I think come next season, full house.
What about when you guys are in the NBA Finals this year?
How fun would that be?
How many people are going to be there? That would be so cool. You have the squad to do it. You have the squad to do it, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're a handful. I mean, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris. That's a threesome I put up against anybody.
Fun to watch.
So it's going to come down to what teams are healthy, because we are very good.
Yeah, fun to watch. All right, man. I knew you had to run to a game. Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it. It's good talking to you.
Anything, anytime.
All right, thanks, man.